Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast live. Yes. All right, so we're gonna wait a few minutes, let some people get in the chat, then we're gonna go ahead and get it rolling. All right. So we got a pretty good show for you here tonight. But before we get started, and we're going to talk some John Salley on LeBron James. Very interesting comments from him on Gil's Arena. We're going to talk Dak Prescott and his contract situation. And we're going to get to all of that. But before we do, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. All right. So a couple of quick notes before the sports, and we'll get to that in a second. We are close to reaching our goal for this month of reaching 2,000 subscribers on the channel. And we are desperately trying to reach that before the end of this month. So we got a few days left. So make sure you're not only liking the videos, subscribing to the channels, but if you're enjoying the content that we're putting out there, please make sure you go ahead and share the channel with other people you know that might want to hear a different voice on these major sports topics. All right. And secondly, I know this is a long weekend and we're celebrating Memorial Day on Monday. So I just want to take a second to talk about that. As a United States Army veteran, Memorial Day is definitely important to me. We know how many amazing people have given their lives, made the ultimate sacrifice in service to this great nation. And so I just wanted to go ahead and I wanted to take a moment to just have some silence real quick and just pay homage to those. A lot of people get Memorial Day and Veterans Day mixed up, but Memorial Day is for our fallen, those we've lost in the line of service. So a moment of silence for all of them. All right. So let's get right to it, man. Good show tonight. Thanks for tuning in. As I mentioned earlier, and as you can see in the rundown, it's going to be a short one, but got a couple of good topics. We're going to talk about John Salley and his recent appearance on the Gil's Arena podcast on YouTube. And we are also going to talk about Dak Prescott and his contract situation. So definitely have some thoughts on both of those and wanted to make sure I got here and shared those with you and kind of got some feedback from you on it. All right. So before we do that, I just want to, I didn't put this on the rundown, but this was something I had a couple thoughts on. And I just wanted to do a quick hit from the Mavs and the Timberwolves last night, NBA Western Conference Finals. So first, let me say this, right? Luka hit that game winner. That was an incredible shot and an incredible finish to an incredible game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. And I'm embarrassed to say, as someone who is, purports himself to be a sports journalist, that I didn't even see it. And why didn't I see it? Because once the Timberwolves went up by 18 points with that defense that they have, I assumed the game was over, honestly. Best defense in the league all year long. I assumed the game was over, and I was tired, so I went to bed. I said, all right, cool. I'll check out the highlights and everything else and what happened the rest of the way in the morning. I wake up in the morning and find out Luka hit an all-time great clutch shot to finish a comeback an 18-point comeback by the Dallas Mavericks. Crazy, right? And man, what can you say about it? So let's go ahead and look at that, and then I'll give a couple thoughts on it, and then we'll go ahead and get to the other main topics of the show today.
Doncic has the ball, down by 2.
There's the switch.
Gobert's out there. Doncic maneuvers for the lead. Got it! What a shot! Dallas has taken the lead. Long
long time, and it's only a 1-point lead here. But that's just Rudy Gobert in an impossible situation. I don't totally understand. I know they wanted to switch back with McDaniel.
Wow. So before I get into my thoughts on this and my couple quick notes, is there anyone better on a big shot call than Kevin Harlan, right? It's got to be, of course, you have Marv Albert, who is retired now, but he had the famous yes. And then, of course, there's Mike Breen with the bang. And then, of course, we've got Kevin Harlan. He doesn't have a signature phrase, but when he calls a big shot, it just feels big, man. Kevin Harlan, he's one of the great ones when it comes to play-by-play. Love hearing him call a game. Anyway, I have a couple questions, or 3 questions on this. 2 questions on what we just saw. So the first one is this. Go back and look at that screen. I'm not going to play it again, but the screen that was set to force the switch of Rudy Gobert onto Luka Doncic. I think it was either Green or Lively set that screen, and he literally pushed the defender from the hash mark, to the top of the circle. I mean, I know it's the playoffs and the officials are letting them play, and I love the physicality, but that was ridiculous. That was like a block from an offensive lineman in the NFL, how far he pushed him. It looked like a good 5 yards after that screen. I'm like, come on, man. That was ridiculous. Okay, number 2. Something I love about the T-Wolves defense that I've kind of been seeing and watching is that they normally don't switch on the pick and roll. The help defender generally shows hard, but just long enough for the original defender to get back onto their original assignment. Kind of how we were all taught to play pick and roll or screen and roll defense back in the day. They weren't switching everything, because switching everything leaves you susceptible to a mismatch like we saw. So I love the fact that the T-Wolves, like in that case, Rudy Gobert, he shows, and then in most cases, the original defender would get back. Now, why would you allow Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year or not, to get caught up in that situation when everyone knows he's a liability in the pick and roll? Now, Rudy Gobert is a rebounder. He is a shot blocker. He is an anchor for a defense, but you don't put him out there on one of the best perimeter players in the league to try and guard him one-on-one. That was terrible. And I just don't get it. Like, that was poor coaching to me. And maybe that dirty screen was what kept the original defender from getting back to Luka. I really don't know, but that was a terrible situation. And Rudy Gobert ends up getting put in the blender. Like, he almost fell with what Luka was doing. And then Luka makes an incredible game-winning shot. So, man, some people call him Luka Legend in comparison to Larry Legend. Well, he hasn't done enough yet, in my estimation, to earn that moniker, but he's getting there. And if he wins a championship this year, all of a sudden things are going to change. And you know, the league has wanted, they wanted to see Luka kind of scale that mountain pretty much since he's come into the NBA. But if he should pull it off this year, especially, with Jokic out of the way, that's going to be something. So can't wait to see it. That's very interesting. All right. So now that I got that off my chest, let's get to the first topic. And man, it seems like every single week we get something to do with LeBron. And that's not because there's nothing else to talk about, but LeBron is a guy that people want to hear about. LeBron is obviously one of the biggest topics in sports. So when stuff happens and LeBron is related, we got to talk about it. So let's do that. All right. So John Salley is one of the better role players in the history of the NBA. This is a guy who won 4 NBA championships on 3 different teams. I believe he was the first player to win a championship on 3 different teams. Since then, it's Robert Horry and LeBron James have caught him, but he was the first guy to do it. Obviously, he won his first championship back-to-back with the bad boy Detroit Pistons, and then he won a championship, I want to say, in 96 with the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan. And then he won another championship in the early 2000s with Kobe Bryant, Shaq, and the LA Lakers. And so not only was he the first guy to win a championship in with 3 different teams, I think he was the first guy to win a championship in 3 different decades. So Tim Duncan has done that as well, but I think he was the first to do it. All right. So yeah, John Salley, one of the better role players in history. So this is a guy who has been around some all-time great players. So he knows a little something about winning, and he knows a lot of something about great players. That said, John Sally's a guy, he's been a fixture in social media over the last few years. You see him regularly showing up on DJ Vlad. And 2 days ago, he was on the Gills Arena podcast, the show with Gilbert Arenas and Rashad McCants and whoever else they'll have on. But he was on there a couple days ago. And, well, those guys had a talk and they said some stuff that had me like, whoa, okay. All right. So let's hear the first thing that they said that really kind of got my attention, and then we'll come back and I'm going to give you my thoughts. All right, this clip is a little bit long, but what is it? Little over 2.5 minutes, but I'm going to let you hear it, and then I'm going to come back and break it down on some of the key points. All right, so let's do that.
And so my whole take was LeBron's skill set would have been enhanced and we would have been able to reflectively look at Mike, Kobe, and LeBron if he's in the triangle, because the way Mike and Kobe trained their skill sets inside of the triangle helped them with the mid-range shot, the fadeaway shot, the elbow ISO shot, the top of the key ISO shot. All of these different skill sets were enhanced on top of their natural abilities.
Right.
Mike's natural abilities from the 80s to the 90s, he was just God gifted with athleticism. He knew how to play. But the triangle helped him structurally understand how to get buckets in a system.
Right.
Same with Kobe. When he first came in the league, it was just athletic Kobe. Once he started breaking the offense in the triangle, he started enhancing his skill set. By the second 2 championships, you've seen a Michael Jordan type Kobe because he understood the triangle. LeBron has always been isolated on an island without a bag.
Yeah.
Without being able to break a guy down and do that because he wants to pass first.
I don't need a bag, though.
So solely on being that guy without that skill set or a system, we can't compare him to the other two.
Right.
So I said, well, if you put LeBron in the triangle, he automatically is going to enhance his skill set because now he's isolating his movements. That jump shot that he doesn't have that they're sagging on, he's going to work on that because it's a part of the offense. I got to hit this shot. That pop back from the big when you're popping back in that small corner, that shot is automatic for Kobe and Mike.
Yeah.
They were looking for that option because they practice it. But Bron never had that option in the offense where he's going to practice this over and over and over and over again because I'm going to get these options. That was my thing with Bron. He could have been the best to play the game, but he never was set up for his skill set to enhance.
If you're going to say the greatest player of all time, I'm going to stick with Michael Jordan because he was the nucleus or the beginning of what the NBA has become after '94. The NBA became this brand. But LeBron, man, when he was 17, 8, and when he was 19, 20, he was destroying old men. And then when he got to the point of winning the championship, I mean, think about it. He lost first.
Yeah.
He had to deal with that loss, and his ass was right back to win it again and then win it again. I think now sitting here thinking and listening to you guys just sit around and go over it, I think LeBron may be the best player to have played in the NBA. It may, has that come up? Did I just say that out loud?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So that was a lot. But let's start and I'll break it down little by little. Okay. So first, we hear Rashad McCants say that he thinks that if LeBron had played in a system like the triangle, he'd have been better because that system forced Michael Jordan and Kobe to develop aspects of their game, like the mid-range jump shot, the fadeaway jump shot, the elbow jump shot, the ISO jump shot, top of the key ISO, etc. Okay. A lot of good basketball stuff there. But I think Rashad McCants actually had that backwards because Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant actually had those skills already. You heard Rashad McCants talk about how athletic they were when they came into the league. And yeah, absolutely, they were super athletic, but they already had those skills because remember, Kobe, he came up in the European system where they got a lot of skills training early. Then he comes over to the States. I think he's in 8th or 9th grade. This is a guy who played AAU ball with like Rip Hamilton. So, Kobe was crazy about drilling. And Michael Jordan obviously went to school at North Carolina, Dean Smith. So, a lot of the fundamentals drilled into him. So, what's going on, man? Thanks for tuning in. It was interesting, but we'll get to it. So yeah, Michael Jordan, he had all those skills. Now you didn't always see it because he he was like a maniac, like a pit bull let loose once he hit the league. He was faster than just about everybody. He could jump over just about everybody. So his athleticism was just on such a next level that's what was shining. But in terms of the actual skill set, he had that. Now, did the mid-range jump shot, etc., get even better during the second half of his career to when it was darn near automatic? Absolutely, but he always had those tools, and same with Kobe. So I think Rashad McCants definitely had that backwards when he's saying that the triangle system is what allowed those guys to hone the skills and employ them, because they already had them. And to me, it was more a matter of learning when and where to employ them within said system. Okay. All right. Then Rashad McCants talks about how he was always isolated on an island without a bag. All right. So let's address that. I've said this time and time again when it comes to LeBron. LeBron cannot play within a system because he has to be the system in order to have success. And anyone who has watched his career for the last 21 going on 22 years can see that. Let's see. Unfair comparison, because they awarded LeBron the triangle, but they didn't award Mike the ability to team hop, handpick star players, and revamp his roster mid-season every year. Absolutely. No, these are all great points, right? So they're saying that if LeBron had the triangle, he would be better than he was. But great point there. If Michael Jordan was able to was going team to team, hand picking star players and controlling a lot of things based on the agency Clutch Sports, let's say Michael Jordan had a Clutch Sports, and revamping his roster mid-season, yeah, a lot of those things would be happening. It's not that serious. What's good, my brother? Thanks for checking in. Appreciate you. All right. Yeah, so where were we? Yeah, so McCants is talking about how LeBron would be better within that system, but he can't play within a system because he has to be the system, and everybody knows that if you've been watching for the last going on 22 years. So the triangle offense will be a complete no-go for him, because in theory, the triangle is an equal opportunity offense that is made to force defenses to react and thus get the best shot. Now, it so happens that Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, two of the best one-on-one players and two of the best shot makers in the history of the game, two of the best scorers and creators, were playing in it. So Phil had the advantage in the event that he ran into a defense that was able to be effective against the triangle. Well, you have the two of the ultimate scoring machines to break that. So I get it, but that's not LeBron's strong suit even still. So even when LeBron has had coaches in his career who have tried to run a system, the entire system had to change around him because he couldn't work within it, or he got him fired. Like, that's just what that is, right? Um, so yeah. Okay. Next up, Rashad McCants makes the point that LeBron was left on an island with no bag because he didn't have a system. Being so he's left on an island with no bag, so he's kind of stuck out there. He's got to do his own thing. He's got to make something happen, which it seems like he's done a pretty good job of doing that for his entire career, right? Only player ever, 40,000 career points, 11,000 assists, 11,000 rebounds. So even with that, he's done a great job. And they kind of spoke to that later, saying, like, if he had a system, imagine what he would have done. But again, I don't believe he can play within one. That system would have kind of railed him in and controlled his statistical production, so it wouldn't look the way it looks now. But anyway, so being the basketball genius that LeBron James supposedly is, right? Uh, wouldn't that have made him work harder on his individual skill work and scoring package, being that he knows that he's not in the system, so he's stuck out on an island with no bag? That should have made him work harder on his individual skill work and scoring package. So knowing that there's no system to lean on or to bail him out, he has to have those skills in order to be effective. By the way, I thought LeBron hated the term bag, right? Remember, we heard him on his Mind the Game podcast, him and JJ. He can't stand the term bag. He can't stand the term bag because he doesn't have the bag those other guys have. But anyway, LeBron is grossly overrated. He's great, but he's not in the top 25. He's in the top 25. Okay, so I don't have him in my top 10. Top 25 is definitely fair. I can't, despite his statistical production, with when you factor in everything, especially the losing at the highest level, I just can't put that guy ahead of all the guys in my top 10. I know a lot of people probably think I'm insane for that, but hey, that's me. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So next up, John Salley. He got it right when he said that he's going to stick with Michael Jordan as the GOAT, as the greatest player of all time. But then it's funny, if you paid attention to the clip, he very quickly went and did the usual thing that the major sports media people do, and he tried to find some reason to explain why LeBron should be in the discussion where he doesn't belong, and that's as the greatest of all time. And to me, that's really, really frustrating. Um, and he talks about LeBron winning championships, right? So we heard John Salley talk about him winning championships within the clips. Okay, so we know LeBron has won championships on 3 different teams as the main cog, and he's the only guy to do that. And we know that he's played for 3 different teams. So by the numbers, every team he goes to, he will win you a championship. That's the empirical evidence. Got it. Now, let's look a little further, right? So with John Salley's comments, he talks about LeBron winning championships, but notice how easily he glosses over the first finals loss. Like, he barely mentioned it. He's like, he lost, but then he got right back to winning. Not quite. And that's something I cannot figure out for the life of me when it comes to the mainstream sports media. How quickly they can just discount that first finals loss. How? Like, we've heard him say, like, oh, well, he lost to the Spurs, but we don't even count that. He had no business being there. What? So LeBron went. He had that all-time performance in the Eastern Conference Finals with the 48 special that he put on the Pistons, who at that point had been to 6 straight conference finals, right? So, by the way, let's keep in mind there was no Ben Wallace on that Pistons team, and he's a Hall of Fame defender and rim protector. So maybe, just maybe, that series turns out different if Ben Wallace is there. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So LeBron was good enough that we make that Eastern Conference Finals performance legendary, but we erase that loss in the finals. Then you hear John Salley somehow move right to the winning while ignoring the absolute complete meltdown in the 2011 finals, where LeBron got outplayed and outscored by Jason Terry, who is a very good player, but nowhere near the Pantheon level guy that LeBron James is. And he couldn't post up JJ Barea when he caught a matchup. I mean, that should easily be mouse in the house, and he should be, going insane and destroying him until the Mavericks and Rick Carlisle make the switch. So, I mean, how do we just ignore that, right? Yeah, no doubt. A lot of people forget that Ben Wallace, for whatever reason, I think he was injured. He wasn't there for that series. So when they talk about LeBron going crazy, and he did go crazy, no doubt about it, context has to matter. Now, history's not going to remember that, but context has to matter in debates like this. All right. Where were we? So then you hear Salley again. He starts talking about the winning, and of course he ignores the first 2 finals losses, right? Okay, cool. Now, I can hear all the fanboys saying right now and screaming about how I'm a hater. Bruce, you a hater. All you do is wake up every day looking for a reason to hate on another black man. Okay. You want to tear another black man down? Okay. Tell me when I'm telling lies. Okay, cool. Anyway, I think they just don't like the truth. That's my opinion. So has LeBron James won 4 championships since then? Absolutely. Has he gone on to one of the most statistically staggering careers ever? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean we just get to ignore the losing and all the other machinations and things that LeBron has done to try and get where he is. And that doesn't mean that we get to flat out make stuff up to push a narrative. Then we hear John Salley get to what he's kind of been hedging around the whole time. Like, if you listen to that whole interview, you see what this is moving towards. And he says that LeBron James might be the best player ever, which is utterly ridiculous. Now, I won't get into that whole discussion now. This is not a GOAT debate, but we're talking about we're reacting to their commentary on the show. But anyone who has LeBron as the GOAT is disregarding the most important aspects of the debate. That's 1, winning, and that's 2, skill set. Yes, LeBron has won 4 championships, but he's lost 6. That is the most finals losses by any MVP, period. That's just a fact. I don't know how we keep ignoring that. I also don't know how we keep ignoring the fact that, as great as he is statistically and as great as the things that he's done, he simply is not as skilled as Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Hakeem Olajuwon, and we can probably go on and name a couple other guys he is not as skilled as. That's just what it is. Does that mean he's not an all-time great? Of course not. but he's simply not as skilled as those guys. All right. But before we move on to the next topic, we got some more to go to in this, right? So remember, one of the people that Rashad McCants referred to was Kobe Bryant. Why? Because he is the second best player to ever play in the triangle offense, obviously the first being Michael Jordan. And so I was looking up, trying to find some commentary from Michael Jordan on playing in the triangle and trying to find some commentary on from Kobe Bryant on the triangle. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. How he won matters, definitely. And I'm not going to get into all that, but it definitely matters. And when you stand that up and weigh that up against the other guys in the GOAT argument, it just doesn't hold water. Anyway, yeah, so Kobe Bryant was the other guy that what's his name? Rashad McCants had commentary about, basically because he was he was the second best player to ever play in the triangle. So unless maybe you argue Shaq, but I think Kobe was better than Shaq. But anyway, so we hear him talk about that. So I was looking on YouTube for some commentary from Michael Jordan about playing in the triangle. I couldn't find any, but I did find commentary from Kobe Bryant, and this is really interesting. So let's hear what Kobe had to say about playing in the triangle, and then we'll be back and we'll talk about that a little more.
Pivot work, like without even having a basketball. It's just run, set a pick, then spin, pivot, go, then stop, change the direction. Like without a basketball. Like practice layups without a basketball. It's weird. I learned the spirituality of the game, the mindfulness that comes with the game. Understanding how to put yourself aside, how to try to quiet your ego, and play effortless basketball. And that approach to the game was something that I felt really separated me from the pack. I called Tex in '99. He was still with the Bulls. And I talked to him for about an hour. And I just wanted to pick his brain. I didn't know he'd be coaching me. But I wanted to pick his brain. I cold call people all the time. If I'm curious about something, I want to learn something, I'll call and I'll ask. And I just felt like his teams just looked so composed and so tactically sound. I wanted to know why. I wanted to know what this triangle offense was about. What are the principles? Why do you believe in it? How does it work? And then when he became one of our coaches, I was really like, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. I get a chance to learn everything. I call him Yoda. I mean, I was extremely fortunate to have him because we'd sit together and we'd watch film of every game. And the first time we sat down and watched film, I was kind of like, all right, we're going to watch my touches. All right, we're going to watch my touches and da-da-da-da. No, we watched the game from start to finish. Rewinding it, looking at plays, looking at tactics, start to finish. Every game. Every game.
And you found you liked that?
I did like it because I started picking things, right? I started playing the game, and now when things are going at a fast pace, I was able to slow the game down and see exactly what I was seeing on the screen, right?
All right, so those were some very interesting and maybe even profound comments by the Black Mamba, and that interview was one that he did with the great Ahmad Rashad. Coincidentally, Ahmad Rashad was Michael Jordan's guy, and I really liked a lot of what he had to say there. Absolutely, absolutely. Rest in peace, Mamba. Definitely. We lost a great one with Kobe there, man. But yeah, I really liked a lot of what he had to say. So let's talk about it, right? So if you notice, there is a huge difference, like a Pacific Ocean size difference in the way we hear Kobe discuss his basketball mind to the way we hear LeBron discussing his. Now, again, I understand LeBron's his own man, Kobe's his own man, everybody's different. I get it. But do y'all remember the Mind the Game podcast? I've talked about it more than a few times on this show. And we heard LeBron James telling us how his coaches were so amazed at how he processed information faster than anybody they had ever seen before, and how he could flip plays in his head at 8 or 9 years old. Y'all remember that, right? So what's the difference between him and Kobe when you hear them talking basketball? When Kobe talks about his basketball mind, you hear him being literally thirsty for knowledge and seeking it out. You heard him say that he called Tex Winters in 1999, right? And we know the stories about him calling Michael Jordan at like 2 o'clock in the morning with questions, right? So you see and you hear Kobe searching out information, right? You hear that thirst for knowledge, and also Kobe accepted teaching. Now with LeBron, I'm not going to say that LeBron doesn't accept teaching. I don't know that, but based on the fact that he's gotten a lot of coaches fired, I'm not sure that's the case. But with LeBron, you get the impression that he believes that he's smarter than everyone else and that he doesn't need to be taught. And again, you heard the references to, oh, my coaches always told me that I could process information so fast and I can't understand why other people can't do the things that I can do. And I could flip plays in my head at 8, 9 years old, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Um, so that's interesting because it seems like he does have a natural acumen for understanding the game of basketball, but maybe it's to that level that he believes that he doesn't need to be taught. And maybe he lacks the intellectual curiosity about the sport to seek out knowledge from others. Now, Kobe, he seemed to embrace Phil Jackson's method and Tex Winter's teaching of that particular scheme. And I don't get the feeling that LeBron would be so willing. I get the feeling like he would be frustrated and he would probably try to get him fired, as we know, right? Yeah, absolutely. We heard the stories to the point that it was getting on Mike's nerves, but Mike did respect it because he saw that Kobe was not just thirsty for knowledge, but he was thirsty for greatness in a different kind of way, right? By making himself into the greatest player that he can be. LeBron, he's thirsty for greatness, but he hasn't done it in a way of trying to make himself the greatest player he could be. He has tried to win as much as he could, and he has tried to stack the deck as much as he could to get as much stats as he could, but not necessarily in being the best and most skilled player that he could be, right? So in their pursuit of winning, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, the pursuit of greatness of their own, they knew that the winning would come. Like LeBron is willing to win at any cost, and we've seen that. All right. So where were we? Yeah. So I just get the feeling that LeBron wouldn't be so, because I'm a hater or I hate LeBron, but it's because he has never embraced a real system in his entire career. We know that. That's not my opinion. That's fact. If you've been watching, you know that. Okay. Um, we hear Kobe saying that he learned how to put himself aside and how to quiet his ego. Do we really believe that LeBron could ever do that? Seriously, do we really believe LeBron could ever quiet his ego? He was making commentary the other day about Caitlin Clark and what she's going through in her tough times as a rookie, and he somehow managed to bring that back around to himself. The guy's the most egotistical guy maybe in the history of the league. I mean, it is what it is. Again, I'm sure the LeBron fans are screaming, "Oh, you're a hater! You trying to tear that black man down?" Cool, but again, tell me when I say something that's not true. Okay, so back to Kobe. I know that every great player is going to have an ego, whether it's Bird or Kareem or Magic or Kobe or whoever, right? Or obviously Jordan. And the greater the player, the greater the ego. However, um, in the scope of learning this offense in order to win and be even greater, the way Kobe and Michael Jordan did. And I'm not saying it was easy and they just, jumped in lottie-dottie from the beginning. They had to take their lumps as well, but they were willing to do that because once they saw that they weren't winning the way they wanted to their way, they accepted this, right? And there are some guys, a la LeBron, who want to win, but they only wanted win doing it their way. And I think it's obvious that that's LeBron. All that stuff makes a difference, right? So I was listening to another show earlier today, and shout out Uncommon Sense podcast, a really cool show, pretty funny. And he was responding to LeBron James fanboys, which he's really, really good at. And he actually has a segment called Fanboy Fridays, which is freaking hilarious. Anyways, he said something that has somehow been getting past me for a while, and I'm not sure why. But anyway, he was talking about kind of this topic, and he said, all these years with the mainstream sports media talking about LeBron, have you ever heard them talking about LeBron working on his game? And I said, wait a minute. Whoa, hold on. I don't think so. You always hear about how hard he works on his body, but you never hear him working on his game. And I was like, yo, wait a minute. That's a great point. Like, you never hear them talking about that. Very interesting. And that's probably why it took LeBron about 19 to 20 years to develop a decent mid-range jumper and a good three ball. And the reason I'm going back to the mid-range jumper, because remember earlier in this segment, we heard Rashad McCants talking about how, in his estimation, that playing in the triangle is what helped develop the mid-range jumper for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And I said I disagreed. Those were tools that they had, but they were tools that when they got into the triangle got even more finely honed. All right. So anyway, great point by Uncommon Sense. That's a guy that being LeBron is a guy that has worked on his body, not his game. And that's why it's taken so long for him to develop tools that a lot of other players have relatively early on in his career. Strange. So that being the argument that McCann's saying that if LeBron played in a real system, he would have had these tools and been even better. It's really just an assumption that doesn't hold water because there's nothing to back it up. And there's no real argument you can put behind that. And logically, like I broke it down for you, the likelihood is that he would actually fail in a system like the triangle. Even Coach Spoelstra, who is one of the best coaches in the league, widely regarded, he tried to run a system, but he had to go change everything in that first offseason. And he had to make Chris Bosh play way out of position in order for LeBron to be able to win. Now, that said, a great coach, if he understands that his players can't play within his system, he reworks his system to fit his players. But LeBron, again, inability to play in his system. So I really don't understand where McCants was coming from by saying that if LeBron had played in his system, he would have been even better. Okay. Wow, that was a long one, but I really wanted to touch on that. I thought it was very important, and I wanted to break down what I thought about it. And needless to say, I did not agree with Rashad McCants saying what he said, nor did I agree with John Salley saying that LeBron might be the best basketball player of all time. And I definitely didn't agree with Gilbert Arenas. You can go listen to that. And I didn't even include that here because we would have been here all day. But I didn't agree with what he had to say about the topic. So what I'm going to do now, we got a few people in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. And anybody who wants to call in and talk about my thoughts on that, or if you actually saw this interview and give your thoughts on it, or you want to, especially LeBron fans, if there's any LeBron fans in the chat, I'm looking for you. I'm always looking for you guys. Call in, tell me I'm wrong, let me know what it is. Numbers on the bottom of the screen should be coming across in a second here. 904-219-8264. 904-219-8264. Definitely want to hear from you, LeBron fans. Let's do it. Waiting for you. By the way, that doesn't mean only LeBron fans, but I would love to hear from some LeBron fans. Hello, thank you for calling Format Podcast. Who we got?
This is Antoine. I don't know. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you. What'd you say your name is, man?
Antoine.
Antoine, thanks for calling in, man. What you got on the topic today?
I have many, but I'll try to condense it as best I can.
Okay.
As it pertains to LeBron, I think he's an all-time great.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But as far as where he ranks, he's in the 20s to me. He's not even the top 10.
Okay.
And here's why. A lot of his stats and it's more story, it's more narrative driven.
Absolutely.
It's not what he actually accomplished. And when you present those facts to many of these pundits or whatever, they're so enamored with the story of LeBron.
Yes.
But they don't look at the substance of what he actually done or what he actually accomplished.
That's correct. Let me interrupt you for a quick second there. It's funny
go for it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that they're so enamored with the story of LeBron because Charles Barkley, one of the most honest guys in sports media and a guy who really says what he thinks, he literally says LeBron is the greatest story in the history of sports. Basically coming from what he came from and coming into the league and being in here 21 years, 22 years now, never having gotten in any trouble, being able to achieve what he did, live up to, and possibly surpass the hype. He's one of the greatest stories in sports. So it makes a lot of sense that you would just say that they're enamored with the story more so than the player. Go ahead.
Yeah, because if you talk about I'm not going to talk about his 6 losses, which were abysmal. Let's talk about his 4 wins. You think about the first one. Dwayne Wade had to acquiesce and capitulate and to give him that. That's the first one.
That's right.
The second one The second one, if Allen, if he didn't make that shot, they lose that series.
That's correct.
And then if you go into if Draymond didn't get suspended, we go
Correct.
all the other different scenarios.
That's right.
Even the fact that Curry was actually injured that entire series.
Yeah, that's true too.
They don't want that one. And then lastly, that ridiculous, you put an asterisk on it. That bubble championship. You know, his second in command, quote unquote, really, really, really balled out that entire playoff.
That's correct.
And they accredit that to LeBron. Was really he really should have won that.
I agree.
Final MVP.
Yeah.
So,
one you forgot to mention though. You mentioned the Draymond suspension, which Stephen A. Smith calls the stimulus package that the NBA gave him and the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is true. But one you forgot to mention, in that same series, Kyrie Irving averaged 27 points per game and made the series clinching shot, that 3 over Steph on that right hash mark. So that's 3 times. That. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't forget that.
Okay.
It's just that with all his wins, he had an actual bailout.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
When we think about Hakeem, we think about MJ.
That's right.
Think about Kobe. They was the reason.
That's right.
Why they won, and everybody tried to minimize Kobe because he had Shaq.
Mm-hmm.
But there was times where Shaq was fouled out.
That's right.
Like, I got it. So
Game 4 of the 2000 finals against the Pistons. That is correct. Not the Pistons, the Pacers. I'm sorry.
But the fact of the matter is, with all these all-time greats that's actually in the top 10, they have tangible evidence of their accomplishments. But when it comes to LeBron, there is his own narrative. It's not what he actually done.
You're right.
And so when I talk about LeBron in the finals, it's always someone else, and I won't fall off that. When he got to the finals in the weekend East, when he was there for, the time period that he was there, when he got there 8 years in a row, whatever. There were some series where he won, even though those teams were so weak. It's just like to try to make all these different caveats for other players. Yeah, did Magic have a lot of help? Yes, he did. Did Russell have help? Yes, he did.
Okay, so let me stop you real quick. Let me interrupt you. So I'm not really gonna talk Russell because it was everything. The world was so different then, and even in Magic's era, the world was different. But with Magic,
Russell, but I'll let you finish.
Yeah. With Magic, the thing is, so he was lucky enough to walk into a situation that was pretty much ready made, right? So I'll acknowledge that. He had the MVP, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I guess Kareem was 5-time league MVP by that point already, and he was going to win his final regular season MVP that season. So he had a lot of weapons around him, and the Lakers organization did a good job building that team. But if we're honest, there's nobody who has been an all-time great in their prime who's had more help than LeBron. And not only just had more help than LeBron in terms of organizations doing great jobs putting talent around him, but we know manipulating the circumstances and greasing the skids to make it as easy as possible on himself to win. But go ahead.
Oh, you get no disagreement from me on that. What I would say about when it pertains to Russell is this, and that's why when I give my top 5, he's number 3 for this reason. He was in the finals. They was up 2-1. And if he didn't injure his ankle, he would have 12 championships. So far as we talk about greatest winner on a championship level.
Oh, no question.
You if you don't have Russell in your top 3, I don't understand it if you didn't do the actual research. MJ is my number 1 because no one had it, stacked against him. They try to make all these ridiculous scenarios about Scottie Pippen, and you can go on and on. But there was a playoff series where the Russell team was shooting like 10 from 48 or whatever. It was a ridiculous number, and Jordan scored literally the rest of the points. It's like no matter what the situation is, he was enough, and that's why people consider him the greatest, because no matter what was presented from him, he wasn't the reason that they lost.
Absolutely.
And for any player in NBA history, you can't say that about anyone. They always had some help. They always had another All-Star. They always had another Hall of Famer. But for him,
well, not Dream in '94 though. Not Dream in '94. He didn't.
Yeah, but Dream was a beast. That's why even though he went number one
Right.
in that series,
Mm-hmm.
even though he went number one, drafted number one.
Yes.
No one questioned it because he was that great.
That great.
But
right.
But he still wasn't greater than MJ if you look at the tangible evidence. But to bring it back to LeBron, he's a great player, but that mentality, the work ethic, people try to credit his work ethic, but he doesn't have it, because if the deck wasn't stacked for him, he quit. He complains. He whines.
Mm-hmm.
To me, he's such a weak superstar.
I agree.
That's why
I agree.
If you ever see any message on your channel that I've ever typed in, it's like he has one of the greatest first ballot Hall of Fame cases, but not an all-time great, because there's too many caveats to what he accomplished, and nothing changes that.
Great point. So let me ask you this. And I agree pretty much with everything you just said, but let me ask you this, taking it back to one of the things Rashad McCants said in the clip that we heard earlier. What are your thoughts on, had LeBron James played in the triangle, he would have been better? Where are you with that? Because I think I made it pretty clear my stance on that. What do you think about it?
Well, it's very simple. It wouldn't have worked because everything has to go through him. And with triangle offense, it has to go to a player that's able to facilitate, to change the nature of how they play, to help. Not capable of doing that. He shows that his entire career. If it doesn't go through him, it doesn't work, and they lose. And he lost far more than he won.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. You got anything else for me before I let you go?
Oh no, man, that's all I have. But I'm glad I was able to catch you on this channel, and I told you a little while ago that I wanted to call in to just talk with you, man. You have a great channel, just like Man Down Sports, man. Just talk about sports, just talk about the facts, and for us who are sports purists, we enjoy that.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for calling. I appreciate the kind words. Make sure you're sharing the show. And Man Down Sports is Man Down Sports is official. If you go through the channel, I've had Mel on a couple times, and I think I've been on his show once before too. So yeah, really like Man Down. His show is great.
Yep. All right, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. If anybody else wants to call in, give their thoughts on this topic, John Salley and Rashad McCants, and what they had to say about LeBron James, and had he played in the triangle, he'd be an even greater player. I'd love to hear from you, especially, again, LeBron James fans. I would love to hear someone kind of push back on what I had to say and give me your thoughts. Defend your guy. That's what I'm looking for. I always want to hear the opposing viewpoint as well as people who agree. So yeah. We'll wait another minute or two, and hopefully we get another call in, and we'll hear something about that. And if not, we'll move on to the second topic of the night. All right, so it looks like that was the last call on that topic. So we will go ahead and move on to the NFL. Definitely want to talk some NFL. Obviously, we're in a really pivotal time in the NBA playoffs, but the NFL is king, and they always got something going on. So let's get to that. So let's make that move. And here's the deal: just about every offseason, we see moves and we see trades in the NFL, but one of the biggest storylines is always the big contract negotiations. And in the NFL, it's totally different than the NBA, because everything is not perfectly set up to where if you hit certain metrics, you get paid a certain amount, and that's that, right? And the money in the NBA is generally fully guaranteed, et cetera, et cetera. But in the NFL, it's so different. How much money you're going to get annually, how much money you're going to get total guaranteed, how much money you're going to get fully guaranteed, how much money's in incentives, blah blah blah. Right. So uh, we always want to hear about the negotiations and how much this guy's getting, how much that guy's getting, because that's one of the most interesting things in the NBA. Because why? How much this guy gets or that guy gets directly affects how much the other players on the team are going to get, because it's a hard salary cap league. All right. So this summer, we already saw Detroit Lions quarterback Jared Goff get a new deal. His deal was 4 years, $212 million with 113.5 million guaranteed at signing and total guarantees of 170 million. So he's probably going to see 170 million dollars, and that's pretty good money for a second tier quarterback that has 4 career playoff wins, a trip to the Super Bowl, which he did lose. So we got to make sure we acknowledge that winning the Super Bowl and going to the Super Bowl are 2 different things, but it is hard to get to a Super Bowl in the NFL. Regardless, you play to win the game, right? What do we say, Herm?
You play to win the game.
There you go. So with all that's still a really good deal for Jared Goff. So happy he got his. Now we're also waiting to see what happens in Miami with Tua Tagovailoa, their quarterback, and we're also waiting to see what happens in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, their quarterback. So these are 2 of the major contracts that we're waiting to see if they even get done this year, right? So NFL quarterbacks, especially for NFL contracts, especially for quarterbacks, they're kind of weird the way they're set up, right? So who's up next is not always the best, but who's up next might get paid more than the best. So I don't really agree with that, but among the first and second tier guys, that's normally how it works. So the big name in this situation this summer now, still waiting for a deal, is Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. Now, if you watch the channel and you're familiar with me, you know how I feel about Dak Prescott. And even though he's a guy who made second team All Pro last season, which he probably wouldn't have if Kirk Cousins and Brock Purdy hadn't had injuries, to me, he is not a guy who should be resetting the market. And I've been yelling this for years. Now, it seems like Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, his son, have finally figured this out. And let's look at some important numbers. Dak Prescott is under 500 when he has to throw 40 or more times. So if you have an elite quarterback, a market resetting type quarterback, you shouldn't have to worry about likely losing the game when you put the ball in his hands. He's also under 500 when he doesn't have a 100-yard rusher in his career. Another situation where, as important as the running game is, if you have an elite quarterback, market resetting type guy, you shouldn't have to depend completely on the run game. He is a guy who has to have a lot around him to be the type of player that he is at his ceiling. And I think we saw his ceiling this past season, making second team All Pro, throwing for, I think, like 4,500 yards, and was like second or third in the league in touchdowns. I didn't put that in my notes. But the point is, this is not a guy that you should max out and reset the market with. It's just not. Now, can you have success with him? Yes, of course. Can you have strong regular seasons? Yes, of course. The Dallas Cowboys have won 12 or more games in the last 3 regular seasons, okay? But can Dak Prescott take you there and take you where? Take you to even a conference championship game? No, he cannot. And the empirical evidence says that, because it simply has not happened. So that is not a guy that, in my estimation, you should be maxing out. He has 2 playoff wins in his career. 2. 1, 2. Not 1, just 2. All right. Now, to get paid like the guy, at least in my eyes, you have to play like the guy when it counts most. And I'd love to see Dak play out this season. Like, i.e., I want to see the Joneses not pay him, let him play out this season, and then test the market. And the reason I want that to happen is because he will see that no one on the market is going to make him the highest paid player ever. That's just not going to happen, because he's not that guy. He will see that everything off the field that he's got that comes with being the Dallas quarterback is going to make up the difference in him not being the highest paid. Like, we know that when you're in certain markets, the stuff that happens for you off the field or off the court can make up the difference in you not having the biggest contract, right? If you're in New York, if you're in LA, if you're in Dallas as the Cowboys quarterback, it can make up the difference. Now, Dak knows that. He knows that, but So last time Dak was up, Jerry Jones made him wait and watched while the price went up and up. I think he franchise tagged him twice, which was pretty stupid. And if that's what you wanted to do, Jerry Jones, that's cool. But then you blew it because you capitulated and you made Dak Prescott the highest paid player ever, while also giving him no trade and no franchise tag clauses in the deal. What were you thinking, Jerry Jones? Like, what was that? You got absolutely nothing you wanted, and all you did was pay more than you had to. It doesn't make any sense. What was the point in waiting to pay him if you knew you were just going to completely cave in? I don't get that. All right, so back to 2020, because that was 2021. Dak is up for another contract, and the Joneses are making it clear that they want him, but not at the top number. Especially they got to re-sign CeeDee Lamb, and I think they got a couple other guys whose contract they got to work on. Micah, I think, is coming up next year, so they got to be careful about that too. So they want him back, but not at the top. Maybe Mike is coming up this year. But the point is, they got some big name guys that they need to pay along with Dak. And Dak, again, is not a guy who is a market resetting type quarterback. So I don't know what they're going to do. So Dak was asked about all this recently at Cowboys minicamp. And needless to say, he had some very interesting comments. So let's hear those, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Because believe me, when I heard him, I was like, what? All right, check it out.
Business is business. I'll leave it where it gets handled. Right now it's about being my best for this team right now in this moment. OTA is helping these guys out and just focused on that. And I know my business will take care of itself. And so been in it before, experienced, and just controlling what I can right now.
Why have you been able to be so patient when it comes to the business?
I don't play for money. Never have, never cared for it, to be honest with you. Would give it up to play this game. So so I allow that to the business people to say what it's worth, what they're supposed to give a quarterback of my play, a person of my play, leader of my play, I guess you can say. And for me, it's about, as I said, control. I can control and handle that part, and the rest will take care of itself.
Getting back to what you were saying about a business, a lot of times sometimes guys get upset and go like, well, it's a matter of respect. Do you draw that line and go, business isn't about respect, business is something else, or does respect come in there something? Because that's where sometimes guys get crossways with.
Yeah, I think it just depends. I think it depends on person, relationships, and honestly position and how much that pay can affect others. Understanding where I am, what my pay means to a team, to an organization, I don't really take things personal. Maybe in my first deal, right, things were a little different than they are now, and that's one, my age, one of who I am, where I am in my life, and I guess the fact that first deal got done, the understanding that at this point I have a lot of decision in this too. I have a lot of say so too. So it's about understanding business is business, and for me, as I said, it's controlling what I can, and that's making sure I'm the best player that I can be right now.
All right, so long quote there, but Dak Prescott, he's saying all the right things. He is. But he's also flat out lying. Dak, you're lying. He said he doesn't play for money. He said he never has. He said he'd give up the money just to play this game. What? Come on now. Come on. I guess he thinks we're dumb, right? That doesn't even sound like it makes sense. Maybe he went to the LeBron James school of answering the question the right way, right? I don't know. Maybe he did. But again, listen, I get that he has to say all the right things as the quarterback and the face of the organization, and not just any organization, but the most well-known and valuable sports franchise on this earth, according to Forbes, the Dallas Cowboys. So he can't be up there saying, hey, Jerry, give me my money. I ain't playing with you, right? He can't be out there like that. He's got to say and do the right things and present the right image. What is it? You catch more flies with honey than vinegar, right? I think that's how it goes. So I totally get it. But you don't have to go out there and play us like we're dumb and just lie. Like, that's not cool. But even still, is Dak forgetting that the evidence is already out there? Is he? So let's take a look. Spotrac.com has every contract listed because we know sports contracts, they're basically public information. So once Spotrac gets all the information, they put it out there. And so we can go look up Dak Prescott's last deal, the one that reset the market. So let's check it out, Mr. I don't play for money, never have. All right, so Dak Prescott, as we can see, his last contract was 4 years, $160 million, which again reset the market and was the highest ever at that time. He had a signing bonus of 66 million, guaranteed his signing 95 million, total guarantees of 126 million. So 4 years, $160 million. And that at the time was the largest quarterback contract of all time. Did he deserve that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because in his early years, even when he won Offensive Rookie of the Year, he got that because he was a quarterback. But Ezekiel Elliott rushed for over 1,600 yards that year. So it's a lot easier to have success as a quarterback when you're always ahead of the chains and everything is coming off the play action. But I digress. The point is, he got his money and he wasn't joking around. He did it. Okay. So let's not, I know you got to say the right thing, Dak, but let's not be disingenuous or let's not flat out lie. Okay. So we can see that this is a guy who's earned a little more than what 126 million. No, I'm sorry, $162 million for his entire career, and that his last contract was 4 years for 160 million with 95 million guaranteed at signing, including a $66 million signing bonus that I just showed you. In case you need to see that again, let me put it back up here so you can see right in the middle of the page: 4 years, 160 million, average salary of 40 million, signing bonus 66 million, guaranteed at signing 95 million, total guarantees of 126 million dollars. So Dak was very nicely compensated for a guy who says he never played for money and he'd give it all up just to play this game. Now, that said, it's a lot easier to say that on your second extension once you've already gotten that life-changing money and you're set forever. I get it. But at the same time, again, disingenuous. All right. And the game of football on the NFL level is physical and violent, and any play could be your last. You literally could be risking your life out there. Now, the game is a lot safer than it was, but still, anything could happen. We saw Damar Hamlin almost die on the field last year. So, 2 years ago, I'm sorry. A lot of things can happen in the game of football. We also know that being the most popular sport in the United States, the game is printing money. And so all these owners are making a killing. So the players should be well compensated also, being that they're the commodity, right? Now, that said, if there was to be a holdout or something, obviously the owners are going to win because they have more money than the players do. They can afford to hold out longer. But the fact is this, Dak, I don't like when people do that. I just don't, man. That was not cool at all. You're trying to play us like we're dumb. And I personally am insulted that you would stand up there and say that. And, maybe if I'm that reporter, I don't know, but if that reporter was one of the more pushy ones, maybe he pushes back and say, Dak, you just said that you never played for money, but your last contract, you were the highest paid player in the history of the league. So what do you mean you never played for money? You want to expand on that? So, maybe you push back a little bit. That's kind of not cool. But anyway, we get it that you got to maximize your earning potential in this game, and that's fine. Even if you aren't good enough, but the market says you can get more than you've earned, you got to take it, because in the NFL, the way those contracts are, they can pretty much cut you at any time if they're willing to take that salary cap risk. They can force you to redo your deal. So the NFL is tough in terms of the players. Now, that said, the players union needs to get more of a spine and stand up and be willing to fight for what they want, like the other sports did. If you do that, then guarantee it'll happen, right? But anyway, yeah, I really didn't like Dak Prescott saying what he said there. Now, that doesn't mean if you're Dak, you got to get in front of the microphone and lie to us and about how you never played for money and you give it up just to be able to play the game. But also, again, like I said earlier, you're not going to be out there saying, yo, Jerry, where my dough at before I show up at your house with the burners, right? You can't do that either. You can't be ignorant and acting the fool. But at the same time, just, be honest. Hey, I totally understand this is a business. And he did say the business is the business, and I leave it to the business people. But you could have left out the part about playing for free and all that stuff. All right. So, Dak, one word for you, man. Stop. And Jerry Jones, don't do it. Don't do it. Please don't cave in. Make this guy the highest paid player in the history of the league again. Don't do it. Force him to play this year. And if you're going to re-sign him next year, but force him to play this year, then make him test his value on the free agent market. And when he sees that other teams are not going to pay him what he wants, he'll come crawling back with his tail between his legs, and he'll take pretty much what you offer. Because if you offer a competitive deal, he'll also see all the value in being the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, and he will capitulate. Don't do it, Jerry. Be patient. All right. That'll be the last I got to say on that. If there's anybody who wants to call in, give me their thoughts on whether it's an NFL topic or an NBA topic or this Dak Prescott topic we just talked about, go ahead and call in. Numbers at the bottom of the screen was at 904-219-8264, I believe. We'll see it coming back over. I should have memorized that by now, right? But 904-219-8264. There it is. Got it in the old noggin now. 904-219-8264. So anything you want to talk about before I get out of here, go ahead. Give me a call. I don't care if it's the LeBron Jordan debate or if it's the NBA playoffs and Luka or if it's Ant Edwards or if it's Dak Prescott or another NFL topic or anything you want to talk about, really. Go ahead and give me a shout. My man Antoine, what's up, brother?
Oh, okay. Just bear with me on this one, man.
Yeah.
Different opinion about it.
You good, man?
So, what I think the issue with the Cowboys is the fact that their president and the general manager is the same person.
Correct. Correct.
And if they want any, measure of success, that dynamic has to change. I don't care how much they pay Dak or if they get someone else in. As long as that dynamic is the same, they're not going to win.
I agree, but I don't think Jerry Jones. Remember, I talked earlier in the John Salley segment talking about LeBron, and one of the things I said was there are people who want to win, but they want to win their way, so they would rather lose than not win their way. That's Jerry Jones. Because remember, back in the 90s, they were winning and dominating with Jimmy Johnson, right? Yep. Jimmy Johnson picked the players. Jimmy Johnson coached them up. They won 2 Super Bowls, but Jerry Jones's ego could not deal with it, so he fired Jimmy Johnson, brought in Barry Switzer. Figures anybody could coach this team. He won another championship with that roster, and after that, they have not seen a conference championship game since. So I hear you, but some people got to win their way. Go ahead.
Yeah, you literally said everything that I was going to say because it wasn't that he built that team. Jimmy Johnson built that team.
He did.
To what it was. And they benefited from what he created. And when you got these owners, and he's different than most owners. He wants his name. He wants the fact that he spent the money to get these players. He set up the situation. He wants that notoriety. But at the same time, it doesn't work that way. The team has to be built. A coach has to be there. A president has to be there. A general manager. You need folks that know what they're doing and just cut the check.
Football people.
Right. And he's incapable of doing that, obviously.
Well, I will say that over maybe the last 8 to 10 years, maybe 10 years or so, Stephen Jones has had a lot more say. Stephen Jones is really keeping him from doing a lot of stupid things. Remember, he wanted to draft Johnny Manziel. Stephen Jones was like, no, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take Zach Martin, right? And that turned out to be, a guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer on the O-line. So,
but to that point, he only has so much autonomy to really do the job that needs to be done.
That's true.
This team want to be successful. And the fact of the matter is, you not only do you blame the owner, you also blame the fans because they don't have the incentive to change because no matter what, they're the number one team. They're selling out with jerseys. They're selling out with tickets and all of those things. So he genuinely don't have a incentive to change that or what he's been doing because he's still getting that money.
Yeah, you're right.
Because the people are so enamored with the idea of what the Cowboys are, not what they actually are. So when it comes to Dak, this is my opinion, and this for all football players. Next to war, this is a extremely physical sport.
Yes.
Now we've seen the game where this man's foot was turned sideways.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
And even up until that point, he was playing lights out. So not just for him, for all football players. It's just a physical and mental game. So it's not like the NBA and soccer where they have these insane guaranteed contracts. The football is so incentive based. I think it's a lot. I think it's genuinely unfair to a lot of these players because of what they have to physically and mentally go through. Because I mean, and I'm sure you're extremely knowledgeable and your process shows it. Football basically was an imitation of war, how they set up things.
So
Stuff like that.
It's funny that you say that, right? Because I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and so I've taken leadership courses and served in the Army for 9 years and instructed, etc. And when I was in journalism school, one of my first projects, I actually did a comparison between the military and war and American football. And I actually did, I'm sure I have that PowerPoint somewhere, but the point is I actually did a project on that, and I discussed it and presented it in front of the class. And so you're absolutely right. And that's why we so often hear the military style references when it comes to football, like going to battle and going to war and so on and so forth. We hear those references constantly because in terms of athletics, I don't know that there's anything else that closely resembles military in terms of the brotherhood and the high level, physically demanding, bodily taxing type of endeavor that it is. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because I think about when they talk about the locker room talk, that was about football. But when the whole incognito situation happened, they kind of perverted that and made it something that it shouldn't have been publicized, in my opinion. I genuinely think that there are subgroups of jobs that let them jobs be those jobs, let those careers be those careers, not to make it public because context matters.
It does.
We don't know the extent or the history of certain situations that lead us to certain conversations, certain situations. It doesn't justify being rude or anything like that. But my point is, when you're in certain situations, football is a grimy game. That's a different mentality. You got to run full speed. Some of these players run like 24 miles per hour to hit somebody straight up.
Right. Yeah.
Car collision. What is the mentality that dictates that situation? So for from us who aren't doing that, or we don't understand that what it takes to even do that, to know that I'm 5'10", 220. This man is 6'4" and 320, and I got to run at him full speed. The dynamics that get that person in the mentality to go through what I've been thinking about is different. So I think there's context for everything in the situation, for to not to go so far off topic. When I think about Jerry Jones and what he's done, he's the reason why the Cowboys aren't successful.
Absolutely.
Because he wants to be the face of the organization. He wants to dictate what the coaches, do and don't do, and so on and so forth. And as long as that's there, they're not going to be successful. He has to remove himself from those different positions. Let a general manager be a general manager. Let a president be the president. He just has to check. And if he doesn't do that, they're not going to be successful. So that's why I don't blame Dak, because he's balling out. Because he's answering to not only the coach, he's also answering to the owner. And that's making what he does, it hinders what he can actually do because of that dynamic. That's my point.
All right, so definitely some good points there. Let's think about it this way, right? So I agree with all that. Side note, did you know Jerry Jones has a radio show that he does every Monday during the season?
Yes, I do.
In Dallas, right? So you know how he gets down with that. You know that after every game, as much as the Dallas media is looking for Mike McCarthy and they're looking for Dak Prescott, they're looking for CeeDee Lamb, they're also looking for Jerry Jones to get a juicy soundbite. It shouldn't be that way. And to the point that you made, which I totally agree with, Look at the great Robert Kraft. Like, you hardly heard anything from this dude for 20 plus years. Meanwhile, all they doing is stacking up chips, right? But you hardly heard anything from this guy. When did you see Robert Kraft? When it's time to hold up the trophy at the end of the year, right? So
he credits those who actually went out there and did the work.
mm-hmm.
His thing got mentioned in the championship, but ultimately it was Tom Brady and it was Belichick.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yep.
he came after that. And he was cut the check. Well, and that's we live in a society right now that people are empowered to be weak minded.
Yes.
And that's affected almost every aspect of sports. It's something like identity politics or whatever it is. It's like they condone weak-minded behavior, and it's infiltrating so many different aspects of sports. It's so hard to watch. So when I see podcasts like yours, Man Down Sports or Juniors Pro, who talk about things exactly the way they are, it's refreshing for someone like me because, and I'm gonna touch on the history a little bit.
Okay.
How did you feel when Jordan won, his first and second championship?
How I felt, obviously I wasn't a Bulls fan. I've been a Celtics fan since I was a kid, but I was still thoroughly amazed by it, just watching, the greatness. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Because I remember when I was doing that, I was just like, it encouraged me to want to play. How many people you came out on a bar court? Oh, I'm Magic, or I'm Bird, or I'm MJ, whatever. You imitate these things because it was so great. It gave you a certain energy. And that is so snuffed out in sports today. Even whether it's football, basketball, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, all these different players who, put it on my back, I'm going to take us home. You just do your job. That is almost dead today. So when we get a little sniff of that, like Jokic and everything, some people that are like, okay, I'm going to do my thing. It's so rare. That's why these people get celebrated, to a hyperbolic degree because we don't see that anymore. It's almost dead. And unfortunately, what people hate it or love it, it died with COVID.
Yeah. I hear you on that, and I think you're well. I want to say I hope that Anthony Edwards is that guy. Don't know if it's going to be this year, but I'm hoping that he is the guy to kind of carry that mentality forward.
I agree with you, man. I hope so. I like Doncic. And the thing is about the NBA, I like the foreign players almost better than the American-born players because the mentality is different. Like Giannis, before he got too famous, it was like, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever I can to win.
Yep.
That's what the players used to do, and I just hope it gets back to that in time.
Oh, you're absolutely right, man. Absolutely right. No, I totally agree with that. Yeah, no, those are great thoughts. Last thing I want to say, getting back to the Dak Prescott thing, and it's not that I don't want him compensated. I'm just saying, like, do it within reason. This is a guy that should never be the highest paid player in the league. And I was just really irritated. I said it a number of times during my little soliloquy there. I'm just really irritated that he stood up there and lied to us the way he did. Like, come on, man. That wasn't necessary,
He was grossly disingenuous.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. I didn't think there was any need for that, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, but I just think that's the world we're living in right now.
Yeah.
Not that I'm accepting of it, but that's kind of just where we at right now. All these different superstars, they just so disingenuous, and it seems to be accepted today. Like integrity and honesty, and just kind of standing as being your own man is something that's dying at an accelerated rate.
It is. That is true. That is true. All right, my brother. I'm gonna leave it there, man. Thanks so much for calling in and talking with me again. Really
problem.
appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot, brother.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Talk to you soon. All right, team. So we're gonna leave it there for tonight. Not bad. Got some good content in, and got to exchange some ideas with my man Antoine there. Definitely appreciate his call. Again, don't hesitate to share the podcast with other people you know that might want to hear a different and fresh voice in the sports media. Uh, yeah, make sure you're sharing this, make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing. Appreciate all that. Definitely trying to hit 2,000 subscribers before the end of this month. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it. Right? Yes, we can. But anyway, for all of you out there, please enjoy your Memorial Day. Be safe. Don't forget what Memorial Day is really about. Remember all those who fell in service of our great nation. We truly appreciate them, and there's no amount of appreciation that is enough for their sacrifice. Yeah, so be safe. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll be back with you next time. And I'm out. Peace.